now 5:30. We will call this meeting to order at 5:30 on Monday, July 10th. We will determine a quorum, which is 4. They both did RSVP, so but we have our quorum regardless. So we will go ahead and start. Would anyone in the public like to make a comment? It's on the agenda.
Well, I would like to just offer an additional context that may be helpful for the various applications I submitted. Having reviewed the video workshop a couple weeks ago, there's possibly room to offer more understanding for what I was applying for and how it helped the city and tourism.
Thank you, Benjamin. If anyone doesn't know, Benjamin Garcia, Renee Granada, and thank you for doing so. And Alco Social, which a very reasonably priced IPA, I have to say, and I appreciate that. Okay, so then we do not have minutes from the previous meeting. Our last meeting was a workshop. And so then information discussion items, we have none. Our action item is going to take a whole lot of discussion. So that is obviously winnowing down from, and so the from $1,055,997 of requested funds to $400,000, which is obviously a challenge.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
The Gogana is still on here. I thought she withdrew.
Yeah, and that is one of the things from the.
Oh, okay.
Hello, I'm in, barely starting. So, given that, let me report on 3 of these, based on our discussion from last time. One is the AfroFab Fest, which I told you all, she had said she was going to reschedule for next year. Now, next year actually meant next May, which is in the fiscal year we are considering. So her application is still on the table. One of the things in our conversation was because Ami has not done a significant sized event in Alpine before, she's an unknown quantity. So when we were scoring, like, well, we don't know if she's capable of carrying this off. There are 2 parts of the event that she has planned. Part of it is a trade mission and part of it is a tourism event. And so, of course, trade delegates are also tourists because they stay in hotels. But based on my conversation with her when we reset the date, I asked her a lot more questions about kind of her track record and background. And she's actually done a lot of this international trade connections with government representatives, different countries in Africa and between Ghana, where she's from, and elements in the United States. Particularly, there was a sport, I think it was a baseball thing, but I'm not positive. But she's actually done quite a bit of that. And I introduced her to Kirsten Moody with Alpine Community Projects and with Robert Halpern with the Rio Grande Council of Governments on the economic development side of things, thinking, well, if she can get some organizational connections here, that might help that part of it. Better off. So now this tourism event of the scale that she's talking about, that we still don't have. We don't have a track record for. And it's a very, as we obviously, hugely ambitious thing. So we weren't off the mark, in our doubts. We still don't know everything, but I just want to let you know that on the trade delegation side of things and trade show side of things, she has a stronger background. So now you guys know that. I also was going to tell you that I had a conversation with Benjamin on Saturday. And one of the things you had wondered about the yoga retreats was that March was the date. And since that was spring break, he felt that funds requested for that month would be essentially wasted. But we clarified it is intended to be quarterly. That specific event doesn't have to be the one, you know, that the city would love, or something like that. So wanted to put that out there. And lastly, Megan contacted me about the historical requests and was wondering about the legality with, because there's a two-part test, you know, it has to directly benefit the hotel industry and then be for historical restoration preservation for that category. She wondered, do the applications, are they legal? And would they actually fit? And I felt that they would, but I checked with Justin Brangel, the lead counsel for Texas Hotel Lodging Association. And he told me that specifically the Granada sign absolutely would fit. It's a, you know, iconic downtown landmark, very visible to tourists. It's restoring it to its visually previous state. He said there's no question there. That's entirely applicable. He said there's a question in terms of the Coconut Field ones. And it would be, are the proposed investments to essentially to restore or to add on to? If they're adding something new, then it kind of doesn't fit. But if they're, as I understand, a lot of it is keeping it functional. And that to me does feel like it keeps it to, you know, a historic building keeps its historic character better when it's usable. And so in that respect, it's maintained. So that seems legal. So I just wanted to, Megan had that question, so I'll make sure you knew the question and the answer before. And then lastly, as we're beginning,
Did he think Christmas decorations was legal?
I didn't even ask him about that, but you know, my
That was the one you were most.
my instinct is that it is not, that it would not be a legitimate historic hotel occupancy expense, and that Abby's recommendation is that the city invest in the city as a holiday destination, and that means, you know, buying nice decorations so that the experience is good. That's totally legit, but I actually don't personally believe that hotel occupancy taxes happen, you know, and particularly the historical one. In the past, the reason she goes there is because in the past, I've talked specifically with her about she's looking for ways to make things fit. So, well, what if we do something at an historical site, you know, can we do that? And the answer then is usually if we have content within the event that's related to the site and its historical nature, that part of it is funded. But in this case, kind of. Then moving on to scoring. Yeah, that's you. I did. The bulk of our meeting last time was scoring all 31 applications under our 7 criteria on this. And so this is a summary of everything, all the work you guys did last time. I left reports out of this because all the applications that require reports have them, so that's not shown here. And so what I did was I took your scores and I weighted them. So impact on stays, I gave the heaviest weight at 45%. And then between the professional and the sound business plan and the capacity to put on an event, I put those kind of equal to that at 40% total, you know, 20% each. That diversity of revenues, I put at 15%. And so that adds up to 100. So you'll see like July 4th, Viva Big Bend, those scored top. And then the new and innovative, because we had talked about that being an enhancement, but not a negative. If something works, but it's not new or innovative, that shouldn't count against it. So this is an extra credit score. So if something is not scoring as high, but you want to consider those extra credits. Other thing I really do want to stress here is that this is a tool for you guys, but in no way is this determinative. You are completely within your authority to fully fund any application that scores low. If you think it's, advantageous for the city. Even though, for whatever reason it's for. So I just want to stress that you don't have to, this is to help you prioritize, but it's not something that you're required, to follow to look at. So. That's good. Let's see. Do we have any thoughts on how to begin? One thing we might do is look at the lowest and highest as a starting point. Or like we had talked about the Crystal Art Show and Music Festival being the same weekends as our two biggest events. So you scored them 0 on impact on stays, so that's suggests to me that you probably don't want to fund those applications. Is that?
That's what, can we start with ones they don't want to fund at all? Like, if they're young.
Yeah, and if there are any others, so that's where I was going with that. It seemed like maybe didn't. So this is my worksheet, spreadsheet, so now.
Oh, sorry, I should have done it. Okay.
Gio, can you hear us?
Yeah, I sure can.
Can you share with Evan the Wi-Fi password?
Should be
Uh,
free, but
Civic Center should have one without a password.
you can't get it to the other ones that close number.
Oh, yeah. So I have zeroed out those two. And that brings us down 40,000. Are there any others that?
Just go down the list, and vote yes or no.
Okay.
And I want to vote yes, I'm then decide whether I want to give that amount of money or less.
That seems fair to me. Well, third one on the list then is the motorcycle. Rally. They have requested 5,000 in advertising and 15,000 in promotional development. So basically for music.
We can partially agree, right?
Certainly, and that's gonna be inevitable for many of these. And last time, particularly on promotion of the arts was the one that were squeezed tightest last year, and so most people got. So,
How much over, like if you add up all the requests together, how much over does that come to? In terms of budget?
right now, we're 6 and 15,000.
Just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, and so you guys can't necessarily see that screen, but but that's my worksheet, so if you see it, that's where we'll track that number. So, yeah.
So when they're saying yes or no right now, they're not saying yes or no to what dollar amount they've asked for, just yes or no, do they want to give them anything?
Right, well, okay, so,
Just like when the person is eliminated from the stuff,
okay, so,
then go back and say, okay, which one's been,
let me ask you guys then to read down the score sheet, and if there are any that you are inclined to defund completely, tell me. Does that work?
vote on it.
Okay, 4th annual motorcycle rally for the Crystal Bar. Fund some or none,
I would consider some.
okay? Family Crisis Center Cowboy Dance. Okay, July 4th celebration. Be the Big Bend. Spirits of the West. Art Walk. Museum of the Big Bend. The museum's renovation and expansion matching funds. The Trappings of Texas. Stellos College Rodeo. Our Lady of Peace Fall Festival.
No.
Okay, we have, that's a very close score. That's your call, okay. And none of these have to be
I
final.
mean, are we gonna consider like what, just what they ask for like that, I mean, because we could give like, right?
For all of these, you can get,
Yeah.
and there's, obviously, we have to reduce by a lot. but everyone can be reduced by some to get there, and some can be reduced by a lot.
I think we should leave our money piece on the table.
Okay,
We're gonna vote on it or what?
I was kind of going by consensus, but we can vote, and so that is
I mean, I
sensible.
think we'll come back to those kind of at the end, like with what's,
Yeah.
you know,
we'll
we'll
go
have
with
with question marks. Yes, yeah.
So I'm gonna put a question mark at the start of their name. Big Bend Ranch Rodeo,
Yes.
Alpine Independent School District, Coconut Field Restorations.
So they're restoring it, or are they adding on it?
Let's pull up their application.
Well, and there are multiple places.
I have a question.
Yes, John?
All the restorations, have they talked to each other? None of them overlap with each other. There are three different restorations of the stadium.
There's one large project that three different, that.
They all have to pay for part of it.
Yeah, they all have a piece of funding for it, and all of them, all three of them then have asked.
Right,
Or-
bound to happen sooner or later. We can't not spend money. It just gets worse.
Right, it's a necessity, but the question for this committee is what is the most strategic and useful, use of this fund with many different priorities. And so some of them will have to be, with not much or very little.
Is it worth considering, because there's a cap of 15% that you can do on historical, right? And so do you know what that value is? And then the value
Yes.
is once that it passed.
The maximum that we can do on historical is 93,750. We have 208,000 in requests. So
But
if
if you
you,
take off the 100,000 in Christmas just off the top, because you don't think it's legal, that puts you down to 108 immediately. You're real
are
close.
you all in agreement?
Yeah.
You doing that? Okay. Then
I'm
that's,
just saying, if it's not legal, we might as well.
that's a good one. That
Yeah.
gets us to 500. But let me see.
But on that specific category, it puts you within only like 6, 8, 14,000 to shave total. off.
Though we might find that to get down, we don't want to spend the full 50%.
Right.
Because we're not required to.
Right.
Let's see. If they indicate very clearly. They're talking about creation of historical promotional materials, totally counts. Outfield wall restoration and painting, that seems legal. Whole facility professional cleaning and organization to prepare for national historic designation process. That also seems-
restoration.
And improvements to restore. They're very careful to include the word restoration in every line.
Yeah.
So I think we're safe, that you're safe, if you decide to fund this, that nobody is gonna.
I think it's really good that they want to go down the path to get it to historical designation.
Mhm.
That right there would make it easier to keep funding
That's a fantastic thing.
all the time.
But the question right now is, does anyone feel like zeroing this one out? Okay, then we'll move on to the next, Big Bend Bluegrass Festival. Afro Fab Fest.
About that one is, I've heard rumors that she's planning to not be here next year or the year after. Is it something that's going to benefit the community ongoing versus the 1 year that she's asking for a very large amount of money?
That's true, and there's no question that she won't get what she's asking for. The question is, will she get it?
Nearly everything we gotta play.
Sorry?
He's asking for nearly everything we gotta play.
Exactly.
That's one. I looked it up, the African Music Festival, and every one of them in Austin or Houston or Fort Worth, none of them in a small thing. You would have to have an unbelievable crowd at this, spending that much money.
Yeah.
$500,000.
It's a large ask right over.
So why don't we go and vote on this? So all in favor of not funding the Go Ghana LLC application at all, please raise your hand.
That's my hand being raised.
Thank you. Now we are at 328,000. Next is Alpine Cowboys baseball. Then Big Bend Film Commission. Coconut Lodge activity.
Yeah.
Question mark? Okay. Right, there's also Solar State University Jacksonville improvements. Now improvements. Jacksonville? Yeah, let's see what category. They were. That was promotion for the arts, 5,000 score goal, 10,000 40. Right now, right. Coconut, this is very confusing because of the names. Coconut Lodge activities was contributing to the building. But that's where activities are every time. And Jackson Field improvements is actually events. So in fact, I'm gonna swap those words on my spreadsheet because we're not talking about improvements to Jacksonville, really. We're talking about activities at Jacksonville, and we're not talking about activities at Coconut Lodge. Exactly. Okay, so, right, Coconut Lodge has a question mark, Jackson Field activities. There's that schedule. Does anybody want to zero that out?
You want to do music festival there? That was the one that they haven't ever done before.
They haven't done it before, and it wasn't very, they said it was like, if we get money, we'll do some stuff. Okay, then Granada sign restriction.
Say yes, we have permission.
The work out west, the remote work promotions.
It's quarterly.
That's the yoga retreat.
Oh, that's the yoga.
This one is promoting the co-work space and inviting people to work remotely.
Is there any room for commentary, or you guys rather not?
I'll read to you guys.
I mean, I would like to, what was that? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, right.
Yeah, so for that one, it's a new way of promoting going out to the event. So there's a lot of people I know from my work in tech that people want to take trips and visit Big Bend, but it's a long weekend trip, especially if you're driving out. And so making it where they know that if they had to get work done, they could do a longer trip and possibly get work done in between time. That's more, I guess what I'm pushing for is trying to get people to make longer trips. So instead of coming out to just a long weekend, which narrows it to only all the long weekends. So a lot of people who drive out here will just do like the big 3-day weekends, Memorial, Labor Day, 4th of July, etc. Well, not 4th, it's too high. But to make it easier for them to do the regular weekends, it's if they know they can work somewhere in the in-between time. That's important to them. And so that was where I thought it would increase overnight stays, but also I know this is a new thing to try. And so the premise of what I was asking for was kind of an annual budget, and it would be going monthly. And if it turns out that it's just not worthwhile, then we just cancel it. And that'd be something that'd be very clear to Chris throughout the process. We did 1/12 of our funding in November and had 0 results in December, then stop doing it.
We didn't say that, Airbnb's 10.5. Every hotel, every hotel has.
Oh, yeah, but they don't,
You compete with
You're
that.
talking about remotely working.
not just work remotely, but also people who are just taking they're gonna work on their vacation. So I do that. Any kind of office-based remote work. So I just got back from a trip out of town for 2 weeks, and I was working when I was out of town. I did visit a co-working space because I wanted reliable internet. Hotels have internet, but not for a high quality video call. It's just not worth it.
As someone that's getting ready to live in an RV, I will also say that this is valuable to, people that are coming here at RVs. I wish that there was a way we could incentivize it to be like during midweek when we actually need the visitation.
There's no reason that can't.
Yeah,
I think you could advertise it like that if you said like, go to the Big Bend for the weekend, come to Alpine in the middle of the week, get some work done, and then head back to the mark. Or whatever, like, you know, I don't know how to word that in a campaign, but that could be like how you kind of approach it.
Yeah, and so. I don't mean to.
Yeah, because there has been like over the past year since I got the building, I'm there all the time, and I do stop in. When the plane was open, I would talk to the people who were there, who were always working on the laptops. I'll stop at Sears and talk to people who were working there and asking them, would you pay for a co-working space if you could? And like most of the time, they say yes. That if they could have a quiet place, where they could actually get done and not deal with the traffic coming through the coffee shops, they would do that. And some of them also said they would have stayed longer if they knew they had a good place to work. And
We
some
get
people,
some of that in the visitor center too,
Yeah.
because they'll want to use my Wi-Fi and it's like, you know, it's not a quiet space to, because anybody could walk in. I mean, Chris knows, we're sitting there having a meeting and I get up like 6 times during the course of the day.
leave their kids at the hotel room.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's a good thing to offer. And I was just gonna say, like, obviously, like, it's also a space that's probably not being utilized during the work week.
Yeah.
When
It's-
we all need the visitation, so.
Yeah, the thing I like about this, as I mentioned last time, is that this is, one, it does focus on midweek, where the vast majority of our leisure travel and event-based things are weekends. And so it spreads that out, but it's also promoting, a different segment. And so I think there's a lot of value to that. Now, that said, as I can work with Benjamin on this. You know, I don't know if I can get 12 grand to put towards it, but I have, I oversee the general promotions budget. And I do a lot of different kinds of projects. And one of the things I really look for is opportunities to, like, one of the things that I would probably pursue, whether this line item goes through or not, and I hope it does in part, personally, at least. But I look forward to working with Benjamin on how can we package some of those promotions. Maybe we can tie it in with hotel rooms, or we can find a way to incentivize those midweek stays and saying, hey, for one, because there's two different things. We're telling people this facility is available to open their mind to this possibility that, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. I could stay.
I was just thinking too, like, you have a 3-day weekend in February that falls right before Cowboy Poetry. So you have that 3-day weekend, what if they stay during the week, and then we have this great event coming up. You have the same thing happening. It's Labor Day, and then there's the week, and then like there's something, there's like, so maybe that would be a way to kind of piggyback it, like you were saying, stay between the things, but they're coming for that trip anyway, and then stay because we have this other thing going on, so it'd be promoting.
How much are you gonna charge for that service?
$15 for a day pass, or it's like, I think I'm suggesting 75 for a week. They can just come whenever they want throughout the whole week.
Do you have anything other than just internet?
Yeah, so we'll have meeting rooms, so somebody can take a private call, they can do that. We'll also have all the
Snack bar.
things of like printer, scanner, what?
Snack bar?
Yeah, snack bar. Yeah, we want it to be like the bar, the building itself be open from 8 to 11 every day. So 8 to 4 is co-working, like the downstairs, it's people just co-working. The bar will just have like snacks, sandwiches, soft drinks, won't be open as bar. And then we'll have like 4 to 6 happy hour, and then 6 o'clock, there's no work allowed downstairs. The upstairs is the permanent, like members only co-working space. So,
How do you feel your internet is? Yeah. High fiber, do you have?
Yeah, we have-
AT&T? That's fine.
we have BBTs, fiber optic lines, so we can give it speeds.
And so if you're doing a multi-person, multi-location type of Zoom, the connection is good enough that you're not cutting, you know, have to
Yeah,
count out
exactly.
everybody else.
Yeah, and we're also,
And that's there now,
yeah, what, it's there now, you're saying?
that fiber's there. now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I will be adding another line as a backup, so that like EBT does, it's very reliable. I've had maybe 1 outage in the last year, but it is possible to have it wired up. We also have TDS or AT&T going there, so it will spread the load, or if there's an issue, there's always internet there.
One thing that I think would be really beneficial too, if you just offer with this space, if you offered some kind of small fee for people to just come in and print something. I know that sounds really silly, but when they're on vacation, it's a really good idea. Very, very hard to find someplace to print. It's very hard to find someplace to send a fax, because we don't use fax at the city anymore. So if they come to me, I'm like, we don't even have a fax machine, we scan stuff. So like, there's been those things. I have an attorney on a Saturday that had a person that needed to get out of jail, and I like printed things he emailed to me because there was no place to print on a Saturday in Alpine. So I think like something like that, where anybody could just walk in and do it, would be really cool too. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't even charge them, you know, whatever you need to print something. I mean, I would
Kind
just
of
be
a
like.
full service office.
Yeah, and even someplace to take packages if they're doing the long term, like.
Those are all part of actually the broader business plan, but that's not necessarily part of attracting tourists, like the specific advertising for that. I know there's a lot of plans for the space. This is where I'm having a number of applications because I'm trying to do quite a lot, and it's more than really one person to do. And being able to have some support on the advertising to get going for, I have to do the main project expenses, helps me justify the risk of the main project. You know, if I get some support with advertising and we get a good turnout, then that gives me the stability to dump a lot more into the event.
The question about the advertising, under business plan is pretty simple, you know, it's office. But when you're advertising, are you also advertising local places to stay?
Yeah, and so because I don't own any places to stay, and so I would be offering all that as resources on the site. When you come to stay, where can you be from? What places would have shuttle maybe service into town or out of town? How many people do arrive by Amtrak or take the bus into town? Yeah, I would also be looking to do promotional things with various hotels or Airbnbs in town that have maybe some discount offering people who stay there. I have had somebody who owns several short-term rentals in town. They wanted to be able to, they asked they could sponsor the co-working space. They could offer it to their guests as like a free perk of booking with that. So there are cooperative marketing efforts that I do.
And when you do your advertising, are you gonna be piggybacking the Granada onto it, like with all the things that you're hosting? Is it gonna be one big, large ad campaign, or is this gonna be focusing only on work?
It'd be focusing on, so while I am party to all the different businesses I'm in, I do operate more independently. I do have the intention of eventually having more people who work on it besides me, and then I don't have to be involved. And so they are independent. They will work together when there's benefit to both of them. But like, especially any like public funding that would go towards the co-working would really just, it would be co-working would be the only thing singled out, and then it would be broader community. So I wouldn't be promoting the Granada more so than other events. And like in the marketing, probably each month we would single out all the big public events that are likely to bring tourists into town for that month's worth of marketing, like rolling 3-week period. And then occasional, there would be some ads pushing people to come, like, plan something 4 months out. But it would basically be promoting whatever is most likely to get somebody to actually follow through. Because most of my Granada events are actually for locals. All the events that I posted that are for tourists are booked by other organizations. I haven't actually grown any events yet that are specific for outsiders.
So who are you marketing, or who are you advertising to? Like at what segment and where?
So I'd be advertising to people who work high-paying jobs who already have co-working spaces. There are a lot of businesses that are saving costs on office space by just renting desks in co-working venues. I've worked with businesses like that before, and so there's partnerships to do with other co-working spaces. Like I have talked to some other offices about just like sharing with their tenants about my space and kind of promoting it as a place they could go because they're already set up for working remotely, and so it doesn't matter where they are. Obviously, they're picking co-working space near their house, so they don't want to work in their home, but they could easily work in a different co-working space elsewhere. So they're starting with people who already use co-working spaces.
What area?
I would have to do some more research before I committed to the funding for that, as in where to spend it. Partly, it's also the difficulty of requesting funds for like the next fiscal year, and I've only been open for 11 months. We're celebrating 1 year of the grand opening in a few weeks, and so trying to get as much as I could together beforehand, but there would be more detailed plans before spending actually occurred. I do some research to find what's most likely to have good results.
How many offices do you have now there?
So I have 8 desks ready.
Are they separate cubes like WeWork, or are they?
They're open plan, which is also WeWork style. I've worked in WeWork before. They'll have like community rooms that are kind of like long tables that you can sit at, or you can rent separate like private office spaces. At the moment, it is an open plan upstairs, although I am also looking at acquiring the law office next door, which has 7 separate rooms in it, and those could be private offices.
Do you plan on putting
at least partitions for privacy, like your stuff with things, because it's very distracting if I'm on the phone with a, you know, with a client or whatever, or even having a Zoom, and Chris is also within this distance doing the same thing, and so it's, you know, I mean, that's a little too chaotic for somebody who wants to.
Yeah, and so that's true. We do have like, we will have the phone booths, like we have plans for having two kind of like meeting rooms upstairs. But there are also other breakout spaces like going out to the balcony for a private call. If it's at the desk, that's part of being a plan office. It doesn't work for everybody, for sure. Plenty of times I step out to do calls, but most of the time, being in one big room, you kind of can feed off of other people's productive energy and not like get distracted if everybody around you is working and you're going to do the work.
You love that.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Because that's a big difference.
Or, because you're just asking for advertising.
Yeah.
So as far as advertising goes, like how many views can you get with twelve thousand?
Well, I was only asking for half of my total ad spend, which was 24,000. And yeah, I was estimating at least 500,000 impressions from $24,000 spending.
And what medium do you use to reach those people?
It'd be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the typical social giants.
So, yeah, it'll get way more than 500,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, well, yeah, it's a 500,000 plus, but it's also, I don't know how targeted would be, the more targeted you are, the more it costs per impression.
Yeah,
And so I'd much rather have, 200,000 impressions with like a 30% conversion rate than 1 million, like 1% conversion rate.
I think there's an opportunity with all of the like tech businesses that are coming to, that people are moving here, that they haven't come to the big bend yet, they're moving to the bigger Texas cities. And they haven't gotten out here yet, maybe that's like the, I don't know, the target
Yeah.
Yeah,
person.
there's lots of stuff over, they're like, we're moving to
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, those people are like, out the California and Arizona people that are passing through on their way to other bigger Texas cities.
It's a great time to reach them on their way.
Yeah,
They'll come back.
and there's a lot of marketing channels that it's harder to, like there's a lot of other ways that we'll be promoting the space. But fitting within the narrow confines of the hot buttons, is what I was like targeting.
Is that Texas CEO magazine expensive to advertise in?
I don't know, they usually do, got that article.
Yeah, I was just thinking that that's
No, I
like
don't know.
specifically.
I bet that it's not outrageous, but much,
Or even get like free write-in about the space.
Yeah, and there's other paths that the space in general that I'd be reaching out to. I do have former colleagues who work at Google, Facebook, Amazon, all in Austin. And it's like getting them the right materials to share throughout the office will bring people out. That's also an advocate for.
so I'm getting the sense from the conversation that there's not a consensus to zero out this application.
I'd like to point out that all of his requests together are $50,000, which is more than 10% of our total year back. So we're gonna determine
Which,
which one of these we're gonna approve.
that's certainly, so now last year, just so you know, Marianne McCon had a similar situation, and she actually missed the deadline this year, so she has no applications before you now. But, each of her applications was significant, and they altogether added up to $75,000 for the one person. So what the committee did then is, they said, well, for this one person, because they were all now, Benjamin's situation is not like that, because they were all the same kind of thing. And so the committee said, this is your total, have the events that you can have with us, and so, yeah, it's a good point.
My point is, I think we need to look at this, instead of looking at one at a time. Look at all of them and say, okay, this is way more money than we're gonna let somebody have. Which one they're moving for?
All different things.
Let me suggest that we consider the non-Garcia applications at this moment, so we finish our do we want
Okay,
to
yeah.
review, and then we'll look at those as a bundle. And so that would be Alpine Circular Van. Anyone want to hear-
Question.
Yes, John?
I assume that these people already own the vans?
They do have a current van rental company. They're expanding with this proposal to the shuttle system. But
Okay.
they're already doing rentals no, Jeep rentals, sorry. And so they have a vehicle-based business at the moment, and they're looking to expand it.
Where are there those streets?
They're the ones in the train people, the pretty green and different colors.
Is that where they help them?
They're there, they're waiting for someone down there in the train.
Gotcha.
So we have one stated intent to zero out that one. There was fairly positive discussion last time, but
Comment if you would.
please, John.
I just remember the vans being so darn useful during the big days of gallery night when there were more than 10,000 people in town. So, there's something about them that we don't have in Alpine, and maybe we need to look at it that way.
I actually think the vans would maybe help other hotels, because right now, Alicia's got the market on everyone getting off of Amtrak. So it might be more beneficial to the other ones to have some other form of transportation.
Shall I put a question mark by
Just to
this?
confirm, like this van is going to all the major hotels, right? No.
They drew a map in that application.
Oh, I-
It showed it going in a
Oh, it's
circle.
real widened out. But it's just a commercial hotel.
It has to stop and start at a hotel to be able for popular transportation money.
But a hotel, an Airbnb doesn't count as that.
No, they
That's lodging.
They count.
So are there any Airbnbs on this? I'm just wondering. I can't make out the map. It's like a little blurry.
I think it's just intending to be like the circle from one end of town to the other on the one ways and back down, but, I don't think there's anything that says they couldn't go off of that and go, they could go
I
to.
think there are Airbnbs because there's not many hotels.
Yeah, what he says is, accommodations, post pickup locations are accommodations, all affiliates per visitAlpineTX.com. And,
Well, and if he printed ours, the only ones that show up on ours is gonna be ones that have an address, and some Airbnbs don't provide their address till after booking. So they might not be showing on there even though they exist on that map.
I would expect that's gonna be on a ad hoc basis, it would be, because, he's not,
Most Airbnbs on it, to make sure the town don't get there.
yeah,
They're not buying it, they're gonna get it at that point.
yeah.
You seem to have a set schedule, like at 9 AM, it's gonna be here, 10 AM there, 11 here, and then is it gonna be a sign up kind of thing, like you go all the way to for circle and you don't meet anybody, that's, by round trip, that's 20 minutes out of your way.
I don't remember what it said.
Routes will be every 30 minutes.
No, every 9 AM to 1 PM.
Just Saturday starting.
Yeah, so it's 1 day. a week.
Yeah, it's just Saturday.
Two routes.
Oh, no, traffic transportation is a legal, category of funds. It just, and it's intended to fund shuttle services to and from, primarily I think they envisioned, from a hotel to an event, and, that was reasonable.
Doesn't he already provide the shuttles for Viva? He's had some part of that
Chris
before.
did.
Chris did it?
Maybe, Ron?
Is he gonna expand on the weekends, include the Sunday?
Well, Saturday's just a start. I'm sure he's going
Yeah.
to.
We get to spend how well it goes. How much money that makes sense.
But he's not gonna charge.
Right.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, we did. Yes.
So, but we have one vote to zero out this application. Does anyone else feel the same way? You want to put a question mark?
I think some funding is good.
Okay, well, I'll put a question mark to allow us to.
Because last week was there, really nice stores.
And then we have, historic Alpine Christmas stroll, which we've already zeroed out their largest, because we just did not feel that it was, the funds. That leaves, some transportation funds, some advertising, significant amount of advertising, and some promotion of the arts. So other than zeroing out that one category, does anyone else want to zero this out? Yeah, the
Yeah.
Christmas tree. Then we have the ghost tours.
Did I miss something? Start up with a,
That's one of them.
oh, three days and 7
So that Alpine Ghost scores, like, they're doing better and better every year.
It seems like, I mean, they are doing, they did more, a little bit more of them this year, and they had stated they're gonna do, I think, 4 different sessions this year. The main, limiting factor is just that there's only so many dates that can do it, and there's only so many people that can attend any one. And so I think it's a great.
So many ghosts.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic program. It's really fun, it's historic, it's good, you know, it's a good time for the people that can do it. But, so I personally wouldn't put a ton of money into it because, but I love it. I mean, it's a good story. We want to.
Yeah,
Want to work with
travel, work with
it,
it.
because,
Unique things.
yeah, exactly. And that's where the extra
Extra
credit.
credit.
What are the dates on it? Is it there?
It depends.
Yeah, I have to look. There's,
The theater can do it.
Yeah.
Theater department.
It does seem like when they first started it, it was during already busy.
They did it during Art Walk the
Yeah.
first time, and that was, I don't think you'll do that again this year, because it was too loud on the street, that you couldn't hear him talking about the buildings, because this street was booming with music, so yeah, they did change that.
okay, so does anyone want to zero that? Okay, so that leaves 2, one star cowboy poetry gathering, and theater for big band. So it's like either of those zeros. So that then brings us to a discussion overall of Alco Workout West, La Sala Alpine Yoga Retreat, Star Local LLC's Alpine Events, Alco Granada Presents.
Just for our that.
Granada.
Yeah,
Is that the wedding one?
wedding and non-live music. I noticed in the workshop, maybe missing from your printout, the non-music component.
When is that on?
Granada Presents.
Right, and I left out the sign, so that, that's the sign restoration, work, the remote work, yoga retreat, the events platform, the ticketing platform, which, and let's see, and I wish these were all bundled together in the same part of the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And then Granada Presents.
But can John hear me all right, or should I be at that, or?
John, can you hear Benjamin?
Just barely.
Sure, okay. Is this better, John?
I said, yeah, that's better. Thanks.
Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 applications to consider. These are separate businesses, some of them, and they are doing separate things. Unlike, you know, like I compared to Mary Ann's applications, which were all the same sort of thing.
Yeah, some context I would offer as well is that these are these are all things that will go throughout the year. These aren't one-off events that just bring people for one weekend. If these projects are all successful to the full capacity, it would be resulting in over 10,000 stays in Alpine. And so that is on the same level as like Beaver Art Walk, which probably only do 10,000 nights. Do you know what Beaver Art Walk do? And it's multiple nights, but they bring in a couple thousand people. So.
Yeah, I mean, the maximum that is possible is, let's say, 600 rooms times 4.
Okay.
That's Beaver.
Right, so these applications combine, I just know the sign itself doesn't draw more people, there's other, indirect value of the sign restoration, but the projects that bring people here will be bringing in, 4 times more than any of the one single events, if they were all successful, which again, money wouldn't even all be spent if they weren't all successful, because these are throughout the year spending, and so if it turns out that like any of the marketing campaigns aren't working, then I don't spend the money. And you guys do what you do with it.
Businesses.
Right, and also all the reimbursements have to be approved by Chris, and so if I spend badly, he might not, give me the full amount, which should be fair.
So on the Alpine events. So the ticketing,
Yeah, so Alpine Events is meant to be a centralized place to market all the events in Alpine and also offer ticketing and some marketing support to the organizers in town. There's a lot of various nonprofits that will organize events, but they are sometimes lacking in access to professional skills. So they maybe will have issues or delays getting volunteers to put together the right marketing materials or web presence. And so it's something that I'm looking to offer to them that they can sell through my site. My only benefit that I'm trying to get from that is the more traffic, which also promotes my own events, but is a way to make it easier for them to sell and market theirs too. And
So is this essentially like what you let the library do Saturday? Because you let them like use
yeah,
the
if you
door,
use my site.
your, enter your credit card to be able to take credit cards at the door instead of just being cash or check. And be able to keep taking the donations as credit card for the Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah.
That
so
would let
that's-
anybody do that. Like you did that because you're in the Friends of the Library and now you'll write the library.
Well, I did it because I want any event in my venue to be successful. So regardless of my association with the library, if there's an event in my space, I'm gonna have a good time. And so that would be a thing I would extend beyond just my space. If people were using Alpine events and marketing event anywhere in town, they would have full access to the talent that are on my staff. So I have event coordinators that will help put things together and just to try and help boost all those events a little bit. But yeah, example with the library where they didn't have a card reader, they were able to take additional photos during the event. They probably raised an extra $1,000 because of that.
and you just write off the fee. for the credit card.
Yeah, I $1,000 credit card fee is about $40, so $40 fee for them to get an extra 1,000 is worth it. Having customers, I know it's free space for them, but
Yeah.
they're very happy customers. But that's where, as you can see, I do try and do a lot for the community, but then there are other, for me to do other things that will bring in more for the business, it does increase the risk, and so that's why I'm looking for some public support. To make those happen.
And I mean, how are you putting heads directly in beds without that? I'm not
The-
seeing the connection. I think it's service and it's a wonderful service, but I don't see that my hotel is going to benefit by having a ticket.
Right, well, it's, they would hopefully increase the ticket sales. So if an event that was going to otherwise bring in 200 people brings in 225 because they used my site and they used my, like, once, if I have a good, once I find the right strategy for marketing different types of events outside of the area, that can then be reused. But what's even more impactful is being able to share those mailing lists. So right now, Viva Big Ben, they make all their sales direct on their site and they have those mailing lists, and those mailing lists are not notified about the other events in town. Same with Art Walk. They go through Eventbrite and they get those mailing lists, but nobody else uses them. And so Art Walk, I don't know if Viva Big Ben, I have to talk to Stuart more. Art Walk is interested in using my ticketing platform. I have it up. They don't want to deal with ticketing. They don't want to deal with the online marketing. And they are in favor, hopefully I understood them correctly. They're in favor of me, marketing to their people at other things in Alpine is, in exchange that also I notify others who bought to the site about Art Walk's events. So there's a lot of value in centralized marketing efforts for our town, that would overall boost sales.
Would this be a way for somebody to like also collect vendor fees? Because I think Alpine gets hurt on that when they want someone to send them a check.
Yeah.
Like be a vendor at something, like bigger vendors from other places don't want to send a check to someone like to fund your business. That's the only way you can pay them to participate. And you're not gonna do that from someplace farther away. So could it be used for something like that too? Like you just whatever the vendor fee is, they go on there and pay it.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's different payment options that they could go through with that. But it is true, the ticketing platform itself would not just directly on its own result in more hotel stays. But the ideal, I think, of all the events that were on there, it makes it easier to launch events for one thing. So we possibly have more events happening because of it. But if we were able to boost the sales by an average of like 3 to 5% across all the events throughout the year, that would be pretty meaningful.
Do you already have the app to?
Not yet, no, it's on I'll be working on it later this year. Yeah, and partly as well, getting other partners, more development capacity than I have, to work on it. It's helpful to motivate them if they know there's advertising funds available. So you can spend a lot of effort, a lot of money developing something, and then there's the hurdle of getting it out there. And so to know that there is, some approved funds to market this platform, is really motivating to get it built.
So the advertising that you're seeking is to promote for future ability to sell tickets.
Yeah, it will, if you're promoting the whatever events are on the site to outside this region.
So this is we're basically promoting an events calendar essentially, but it's an enhanced one.
Yeah, with the,
That where you can buy the ticket right there.
yeah, you can follow through with it. And it would also, be able to, you know, tie in with, notifying people about their accommodation options. Or if anybody wanted to offer certain deals, if they want to partner up with a certain event and say, if you buy this event ticket and with your help, with us help at the same time and get whatever discount or extra perks, that would be an option. This is something I'm building anyway. So I'm working to build it and we'll have it done by the end of the year. And it's just wanting to be set up to, make it as successful for the time as possible. That I'd wait for another fiscal year cycle. Is where if we were doing hot funds on a quarterly disbursement, I probably would submit my application in October. But yeah, this is the timeline we're working on.
So the idea is to finish creating it and then some advertising money to get it out there to sell tickets
Yes,
to the area. So more people come, they know about events.
yes. And then start that, reselling. Once they bought something through there once, we can notify them of all future events.
Yeah, now the packaging with hotel rooms is something that I have been tossing out to people over time saying, if we could come up with a package of some kind where so-and-so's guide service, where it has a hotel room attached, well, I could use my social media budget and we could buy some ads to help you sell that thing. And so, both the remote work, the co-working space, as well as the event-based, part of this thing, especially if we can tie it into actually buying a room and things like that. Both of these are things, and also the wedding destination, wedding piece of it. Those are all things that I would really like to explore. These are all three things that I can explore as part of the general promotion budget that I used. Not at quite the level that is listed here, but you should know that I think these are good things. I intend to be working with Benjamin. He's got a whole lot more of an analytical mind than I do. And so I suspect that the analysis of the campaigns I do with Benjamin will be much more rigorous than the ones I'm doing right now. So that's been good. But anyway, I just want you guys to think.
And on a capacity background, most of my career is working for an events technology sales platform. And they sell travel packages is their main thing right now. And actually more college students in North America travel through this company than any other company, like more Expedia, operating through their 20 different sub brands. So the travel, tourism, events industry is something that, while I'm new to doing it in person here in Alpine, it's a field that I've worked in for 10 years.
Are you doing this alone?
I just hired three consultants out there, so yeah.
Because this is a lot of stuff to do,
It's,
guys.
it's a lot. So I'm making up the hires. I was solo until February. I made 2 hires in February. Now I have 8 employees. I'll have 10 next month. So it was, I take seriously being rigorous about involved before I involve other people, additionally in public funds. But I want to make sure there's enough work to do before I hire somebody so they can count on the hours. I want to make sure that any money I spend is really very likely to have a good return.
Do you plan on putting all these different plans into some sort of umbrella advertising idea, to combine the funds, make them go further?
Yeah, where it makes sense to.
Probably not gonna necessarily do remote work for your wedding. but-
True, yes, yeah.
Are you?
Well, a lot of people have
My wedding.
Yeah, because my mom was like, I can't go out there.
Yeah.
Wow. You have super sophisticated computers, you know, being really fun.
That's part of the story.
So we've got an overview of most of these things, and
Thank you.
Yeah, and that was the ticketing. I don't know if there's, for the yoga, yeah, the date can be changed. I don't know what more there was to say on that. Well, I think you guys had a pretty good understanding of it during the workshop. Yeah, the targeting method for that is basically reaching out to a bunch of the yoga studios and just asking them to advertise to their students, like a retreat you can come here for. It is very popular among enthusiasts. It's very normal to spend $2,000 to $3,000 on a 1 week retreat. And so having to spend it all year and then it locks in a hotel for the whole time. For that, I talked with the Antelope Lodge around having their space. They have the right kind of rooms that you can kind of look out for the whole space for the whole week. They have all that nice outdoor courtyard space. And then we have like a shuttle service bringing people to the Granada for daily activities, yoga, also taking them out into make the various tourism stops. We stop at the museum, go do the hikes. We get catering from local restaurants, and they spend 8 to 9 nights in a hotel.
For the advertising for the yoga things, will those be actual like little postcards, pictures, and the yoga studios?
Yeah. As well as trying to see if any of them would just email the numbers. And part of that is also this various, if we invite a few different prominent yoga influencers to come for free and then tell all the followers about it, the students about it.
How do you feel the following for that is for help?
And there used to be, before they closed, the previous operators of the studio at Granada, they did have successful retreats. They had people would come out from Austin for a long weekend and spend $600 to do like a ropes yoga class, and that didn't include any accommodations. They had to drive themselves out. From pictures I've seen and from talking to some of the previous instructors, there's been success in bringing people out for that. Especially the numbers I'm talking about. I'm looking to bring 30 people. That's not a huge.
What do you think is going to compete with Terlingua and Martha's that they're doing? They're doing retreats pretty often.
Mine's slightly different crowd feels here. I definitely getting people out to Alpine is different from getting people out to Marfa. Terlingua was a little more similar, I think, but how I do try and draw people out for the nature of scenery, being on the desert. Whereas Marfa, my understanding, they more often attract people who are interested in all the other kind of quirky things going on in Marfa.
Have you done this before?
Yoga retreats I have not done before. Yeah, that is new. The coordinating the travel aspect of it and various marketing is something I've done, but I've been partnering with the instructors I currently have at the studio. So Hannah, who's been teaching classes there for a year and a half now, and was teaching classes for 2 years beforehand, and then also worked with Bailey and possibly others in town.
okay, yes, it is. So, are there any of those 5 that anyone wants to zero out? Since we have not considered them. Okay, then we need to start looking for things to cut. So let's see, we have
We're going back to the top.
To let you guys go without, I'll take off so you guys can do your deliberations without me. But yeah, just wanted to, thank you guys for your time, to let me speak on these projects.
Good job.
Thank you.
Wonderful evening.
Are those your sunglasses?
Oh, your son's.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
okay, so are there any that we want to identify, like some of these 100s as anything you want to identify that this we just want to fund fully if possible? We want to flag some of those?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at the hundreds. July 4th is asking for $6,250. You wanna? Okay, so we'll say, we'll try to keep that, the 6,250.
They had a great turnout this year.
Yeah, let's see. Look at your,
Amounts, 7 on the front page.
look at their application. I bet what I did was, I tended to add it up by category. So like, Afrofest, that's their applications are 300 something, but they only actually have applications, so then I had to. Yeah, their letters is 66. They're up to 66. Okay. Ah. Now, youth activity. Yeah, I missed sporting events. Thank you.
Do they put that online on Facebook?
Yeah, they do it just locally. I don't know that it might maybe go out of town, but they're out of town. It's almost.
Someone who's also taking it over next year. Someone who's taking it over. next
Oh,
year.
really?
Not Quantum. Oh, no, it'll be Quantum. Oh, I think Quantum is gonna spearhead it. Yeah.
Okay, so Viva Big Band, that's for 19,250 in advertising, 15,000 promotion of the arts, 750 transportation for a total of 35,000. Do you want to try and keep that level, or do you want to?
Did we ever review what they got left?
He has asked for a slight increase for the first time, so. Okay, so for now,
I'm gonna give all of that.
Yeah.
okay,
Leave a big bin thing on it.
and then we've got Art Walk. Art Walk is asking for 45. That is 25 for advertising and 20 for promotion of the arts.
You know, again, Art Walk and Viva Big Bend certainly leave more money in Alpine than we could give them.
Okay. That one. Then we have Traffic to Texas at 25,000 for advertising. That was another 100. And so Ross College Rodeo after 15 sporting events. Big Bend Ranch Rodeo asked for 20, also for sporting events. Like Cowboy baseball. That's for that pretty much this, they asked for 34. That's 14 for advertising, which they've always done. 10,000 for sporting events, which they've always done. The change this year is they've asked for 1,000 for historic, and this time they're asking for 10, and that is their portion of the restoration stuff after Hill. And so given that, several entities are asking for the same project, that's one. Anyway.
But the coconut field is only the two.
You're right.
School and the Cowboys.
It was confusing because one's Coconut Lodge.
Yes.
Okay, so. Cowboys. Yeah. And then we'll start double poetry gathering. Now, they asked for 72, which is a lot. Civic Center use, $400, 38,000 for advertising. 22 promotion of the arts, which is stipends for the poets.
The new is the 10 for
Right.
for them to put on the rodeo to bring people in a full day sooner.
Yep, and then 2,000 for transportation.
So they're trying to add it.
They're doing the Wednesday night rodeo thing again, and they did have Thursday as a performance night. So they've added the rodeo, they've made it into a longer event.
Now, I would suggest that the gathering could succeed without this full advertising.
This is. Kelly Green, we get a lot of money every year. It's been coming every year. So I didn't, it wasn't worth that kind of money for you to get to the event, so we made it everything.
Yeah.
What did they ask for? 65 or something like that, and it was a lot of liquor. It's always a lot further out of the part of the
Yeah.
hours.
Give another I can say.
There are people already came to town earlier, now they'll just come Monday and.
Yeah.
Mailing list.
They do. They also have
They asked for 31,250
in advertising.
on advertising.
They did make beautiful billboards that were all
They
over
were-
the state.
Let me tell you, Bob Saul works those billboards and he knows that. I was thinking about doing some billboards in Dallas, and so I told Bob, how do I down?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I
He's
say-
good news. Okay, I just
That's
wanted
just me.
to raise that question, because one thing, like, given that it's, what, three nights, so there's only so many rooms. One, there have been arguments over the years of, and this is something for you guys to consider, you don't have to do this now, but going forward, is there a cap at which one weekend should be able to justify an expense?
The city has so many rooms.
But we have,
No question.
the advertising is not the big hole. Why can't they consider the 22 and like this, they could pay the performers for themselves, because that's the category that's gonna hurt more to take the money, like, because we have less promotion of the arts to get.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, honestly, yeah,
Their ticket sales wouldn't, I mean, because you have to pay for the performances. So what does that pay for if you pay, if this is paying for the performers?
It's just makeup.
yeah, we've got, yeah, those 5 categories are asking for 38 advertising.
Where'd they get it last year?
They got total,
It was somewhere around. 100.
it's just, I just looked at the. Actually, it was 48.
Oh, it was. Well, because we cut them. We didn't get them every
So we
single
gave them
one.
31, gave 31,250 for advertising, 300 for civic center, 15,000 for promotion of the arts, nothing for sporting. That's it. Yeah. And
They do very, very good.
I,
Oh, none of these people are frequently ever been there.
exactly. Okay, so we won't then just bold the cowboy report together. Do you want to go ahead and try and determine what those would be? Which categories to reduce?
Well, I think that advertising.
Yeah.
The advertising.
Well,
But
one
then advertising is easier to get.
That's true. Well, that, one thing to be aware of is we have, 83,750 that we can spend on promotion of the arts. And we have 135,000 in requests. So they absolutely have to pay poets, you know, there's no question.
It's 93 or 83? On all the 50.
We set aside. 10,
Oh, gotcha, okay.
For,
Gotcha, yep.
yeah, that's for a rebate program for film production and for music that the city would do, there's 5 for that.
I'm trying to take my own money. They're actually being pressing.
Category, you break that big.
Okay, well, I'm gonna
You
check.
had a certain category.
But it seems like the more advertising they do, the more ticket sales will get, the higher they can cater. So
Okay, if we do. Okay, if we take their advertising down 8 to 30,000. We bring their promotion of the arts from 22 to 18, those are already 3 more than they did last year. And then we drop their sporting from 10,000 to 9,600, that makes the difference and we're straight at 60,000. So that works for the moment.
And they're 2,000 for transportation to stay the same, if that's their shuttle.
May I ask a question?
Of course.
Last year, we were all worried, and the year before for that matter, what our revenues were going to be coming out of COVID, and 20 and 21 were kind of weird. And if I remember correctly, the revenues from last fiscal year, you were surprised, Chris, you were surprised that we got more hotel occupancy tax money than you expected. So
That's true.
Is that a truism to go forward? And does this reflect that we probably have more money than we think?
This is the finance director's estimate.
Exactly, the 400,000 that we're working with is basically what the city manager says the committee has to work with. Yeah, out of that budget. There is more money in the bank that has not been spent, but there's some requirements, administrative requirements before we can make a strategic plan for what that means. And some of it might mean, down the road, okay, we've got 450 because we've decided this is how we're gonna spend down that balance, but it might also be that with the city council, we work out, some different, strategic goals and use the money for that. So we don't know how we'll do it yet, and so it's not available to us.
But
I,
she's 420.
go ahead.
The 426, 194 beats the 50% requirement for
Um,
advertising.
Well, basically, I'll meet the 50% requirement for advertising because we have to. And so
Right.
basically, as we close out the fourth quarter of the fiscal year, I get the reports and.
Yeah, right. I know, yeah.
Yeah, so that'll happen no matter.
Right,
But,
but that's where that number estimate's coming from.
yeah, well, we worked with the same estimates from last year.
Okay.
Like, we just kept those,
Right.
kept those steady. So we have cut a little, which is great. We've still got 290,000 that we need to get.
But this whole thing's assuming we bring in more than 800,000 in funds.
Yes,
That's
and
what,
so
and that was budgeted.
are there any other things that we might want to do partials on? Like, okay, moving on, just working down the list now, back to the top. The motorcycle rally at the Crystal had a modest score, a modest extra credit. They're asking for 5,000 in advertising. It's quite reasonable to try and bring motorcyclists. They're also asking for 15,000 in promotion of the arts. I would suggest that could be less. Well, it's
the music.
basically, yeah, it's music during the.
They have bands on their stage, that's
They
what.
gear for the motorcycle.
But so the question is, we could reduce that. Do you, and so how much do you want to reduce that?
That's
15,000, so 500. That is a good thing, to get them something. like that.
They're at 5.
The cowboy dance. That is a very low amount, they're asking for 2,000. I would be inclined to do that same.
Yeah.
Yeah, leave it alone
Okay.
or increase it for that matter.
Okay, so then Spirits of the West is asking for 16 in advertising, 11.5 and the rest of
The first two crystal ball things, at least you looked at.
Yeah, we did.
So that's 16 and 11.5. Coming to 27.5. That is a promising, it actually got a nice. High school there. So like some hiccups, but. Okay, so for now, we'll leave that one alone. Okay, then we have,
What the numbers on that name?
yeah, it was 16 for advertising and 11,500 for promotion of the arts.
How much do they need to cut from promotion of the arts right now?
Right now, we need to cut 10,000. It's actually in better shape than we were last year.
And how much do we need to cut from your category?
Let's see. Oh, wait, no, I was wrong. We need to cut 10,000 from historical, and we need to cut 30 roughly from promotion there. I apologize. It's kind of wrong.
What about
Alpine Independent School District has 5,000 in promotion of the arts. That should go into advertising to make the promo material that they want to make for the field. I think they had it in promotion of the arts because they want the kids Adobe class to do it, but what they're making is printed material. printed promotional material, so that would easily fall into advertising, not promotional.
Okay, well, for the moment, we'll move that, but that doesn't.
I agree for whatever that's worth.
That was my 2 cents, thank you.
So, let's see, we were back at, so next was Museum at the Big Bend, which was 25 for general museum advertising through the year. And now, as like Benjamin mentioned, that is affecting now the direct room nights is a question that you guys asked, and they got, 5.8, in terms of the impact. But it is year round. That's a big, so that incremental benefit is spread out for the whole year.
So you're still talking about cutting 10 grand from historical restoration.
Yes, 10 needs to come out.
Why don't the Coconut Lodge one, we haven't talked about reducing that from 25.
The library outward.
The lodge one is asking for 25 in historical. The question mark it anyway, yeah.
What does the lodge bring in?
That's what right now, that it needs restored so it can be used.
Yeah, and when,
But like you said, the theater's supposed to do something about it too.
so we'll at least cut that 10. And then,
There's more.
okay, so now we are within budget on historical. So then, under promotion of the parks, we are at 116, 750. And 83, 750 is our max. So that's,
Are we even using the Big Bend?
that is a question. Then we were talking about categories again, so I got distracted.
That historic restoration one from Museum of the Big Bend is a match one that did.
Yeah, that's a match for National Endowment for Community Center.
The renovation and expansion.
Yes,
Yeah.
and the first 25 is
Their normal.
basically, everything that's not trappings, all the different events. They usually have 3 other exhibits, so that's 3 grand opening weekends.
So we're doing those.
And they'll also start advertising the event center as in places that
Mhm.
have stuff. The new one.
Yeah, they're already looking events there, so that will bring in.
It's so great.
But leaving that for the moment, there wasn't an obvious reduction there. That brings us to Our Lady of Peace Fall Festival. They asked for 15 for advertising, and they asked for 15 for promotion of the parks.
I thought we voted to 0.
It was a question. I would be surprised if they actually had the wherewithal to use 15,000 in advertising. Yet, folks who do a lot of locally based events, advertising out of town is a stretch. You gotta think ahead, and so what I see often is that I wind up having to buy more ads to make a difference with influencers. But
The fall festival that I've mentioned years past is a local event. It's not bringing people in. It's a great event for locals, but I don't know that anybody's looking for a church fall festival as a destination.
and so.
Yeah.
And so the question then is, in the spirit of assisting them to invite people out there, do you want to provide them some funding?
Is $5,000 reasonable?
I was thinking like, yeah.
By total or with each?
I think just give them advertising.
Yeah.
It's not easy to watch them first.
I don't think they'll use 15,000 for promotion of the arts, but they will use some, I think. They bring in people from,
Right? They're gonna have bands.
from out of town, and they have bands.
Well, so do you want to put something in there? I have it at 0 right now. But
How much does the band cost?
it depends on the band.
Yeah, they don't use big bands.
Bands that I booked for my business before, and then $1,000 usually.
Yeah, like a DJ. So, yeah, for
Okay. So then, moving down to the Coconut Field restoration. So we have 5 that we just moved from promotion of the arts to advertising. Then we have 20 for historical restoration, and 20 for sporting events for a total of 45. That's the request right now.
With the 20 and 20 are
I thought we got historic restoration down to where it needed to be without cutting any of that. Or we still could cut it, we don't have to.
Right, we don't have to
Yeah,
spend 15, we are legal right now, but we're legal but over budget. Where we're at, right?
oh,
Their total overall budget. Actually, we have 20 more from arts that we need to cut to be legal. And we're still over budget 248,000.
well, we haven't talked about any of yeah.
Correct. And
And the
so,
circular van.
How much of the money are they spending on the coconut field restoration that is beyond restoring? That you mentioned.
They said restore in every single line of it.
yeah, so it's different parts of the ball park.
The wall, the field restoration, and then cleaning.
Creation of promotional materials, outdoor wall restoration was 5, whole facility. Cleaning, so each of those is 10, 10, 10, and 10, batting cage, field surface, whole facility.
I'm sorry, that's.
We need a, right?
But, so our questions here is in terms of priority, every budget's a priority, you know, and so among these things, the amounts that we're funding, all of these have value. You know, and could be argued, you know, Coconut Field is a tremendous asset that I find, and historical treasure, and it gets used, which is amazing. That doesn't mean that this fund has to be the one that funds it, and it doesn't mean, and so, but it's for you guys to say, you know, of these things. So do we want to fund it at all? It seems like, yeah. And so the question then is. Yeah,
We're 247 budget.
yeah, it's gonna happen.
Keep approving this stuff, make it small, good, place.
It would seem to me, Mr. Ruzia, that it would be worthwhile on historic restoration to reach into our bank account and pull some money out of that. This is just a not an ongoing every year expense, but just occasionally, you know, and they're working on it. And I think we should think about it as coming from a different direction rather than the immediate 400.
Well, that's something that, okay,
If we're
one thing that you could do is, as part of your recommendation, you could say, you could take the 40, because not the 5,000 is for promotional materials. You could take that 40 with that exact argument, John, and say, we think this is important, but we suggest that the city look to the fund balance for that.
Yes, and
Because
it ties us up. It ties us up on every single one of these projects, that 40,000. So it just seems to me that city council, you know, you can ask Rick, who's sitting there, whether the city council would look, I'm not asking for his vote, but asking for his opinion on whether something like that was possible, because I think this is important, and it's obviously tying up a lot of our time saying, oh, well, we better take 5,000 from here and 10 from there and 1 from there, and it's only $40,000.
But what we're at total for historic restoration with what we've got is 93,000.
right,
So we're legally meeting the 15% right now.
so we're still 248.
Right, and we're legally meeting the 70 on sporting. That's what it's at, 70 grand total.
Right, and there's no map at this point.
Right, and then, oh, okay, and then transportation is at what with the cuts?
Transportation is actually at 32,250, and that is, most of that is the circular.
The circular van. So that's what I'm saying. Why don't we start talking about the circular van and the Granada things that we haven't talked about at all yet on that 240 we have to get to
before we cut these historic restoration things that we all think are important.
Okay,
So like, bin sign is important in historic restoration, so don't touch the 20 and mark that one off the list and go on to the other 4.
well, John's argument still holds as much for the sign as for Coconut Field.
The sign is already a landmark, whether it's lit up or not.
It's true.
And if he wants to draw more people to come into his door, he can pay for the lights to fix it.
I agree 100%.
100%.
That's part of having business. What's that?
Okay. So do you guys want to zero that one out?
I'd
Um,
rather support baseball field than some businesses fine.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, that's a good point, he's good sales. Doesn't run anybody, but
Seems more like a
he's
personal.
running a business. Some
Let me ask a question if I could, please.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you all like to see the Granada sign lit up and beaming as folks drive into town? I mean, wouldn't that be a good thing?
I'm sure he can afford it.
I would love to find the latest. It's not in my budget, so maybe next year.
Well, do you want baseball or Granada sign?
No, what I'm saying is there's plenty of room in our whatever you call the fund balance
Unbalanced, yes.
to do the Granada sign. And I'm sorry that they can't afford it. That's what it looks like. And they can't find a sponsor for it. But I think it's important.
What would you rather fund out, the sign or his yoga retreats, the worst case? What's more important?
Because it's getting more considering people in town, the design, yeah.
Oh, I know. I think this sign's more important than
I
any
don't,
of those
I
other
don't see
things.
money in his pocket, I don't see, yeah, great guy, good dude. But I just think that a communal workspace, there's just too many other places that are offering that. I mean, you've got it downstairs, you got it in special rooms.
I have upstairs.
Yeah, exactly, and there's just, I don't see that he's gonna get the participation, but I could, maybe.
I like the fact that he probably is gonna do some excellent advertising for the area.
Yeah. But also the wedding thing, that's gonna benefit him big time.
So would that benefit?
To a certain point, yeah, to a certain point, but it's in his facility. So that's where the money's gonna get funneled, but then put into.
Well, but he doesn't make nearly as much off of a wedding as what a hotel does that books the 30 rooms for it. I mean, they make way more. That's why when you have your wedding at the gate, you have to rent every room in the whole place. That's a requirement.
But does everybody require that?
But
Or
they-
several does?
No, they don't, but like, I mean, my brother was British on the now, he cleaned up the entire second floor from the wedding, they booked the whole second floor, that's 35 rooms there, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Weddings are big business.
Yeah.
So these things, if they're, it's like the film commission, going to it's a long shot that, odds are a big production won't come this year. If it does, it's a huge, it's a high reward thing, wedding's the same deal, big.
Well, do you wanna go on furniture? Go on what?
It is.
We're not doing 40,000 for a coconut field.
It has not been determined. On the table is the possibility of the committee suggesting to the council that, that these historical projects are important, but making the case that they should be treated separately.
Yes, please.
And so I've got the Granada sign in a little
Yeah.
corner of the
That's fine.
spreadsheet,
Right.
for that consideration.
Seems like some of these things like this go around field restoration. Could have big fundraisers, but they're just asking for.
They're looking from a lot of different places. They're gonna be getting grants, the university, the school district.
If many people go to that stadium, you start advertising around town, ready to raise funds, I bet you get a lot of them.
Yeah. This is not the only pot of money. They're looking to spread the load as far as they can. It's not on you guys to fund the whole thing. Clearly, you feel that it's an important thing. But you're not required to fully fund it. like, one thing we could do is leave 20 and put 20 in this little hypothetical bucket. So. Then see where we're at next.
That's their labor, but it's- they're just bouncing around one of the other, they're not comfortable.
Well, I understand my meeting running style. Inefficient. I'll grant you that. Okay, so in that case, we have not talked about the Big Bend Film Commission, $26,000 for,
I thought that was a yes. For the
Was it?
Yeah.
it was, no, it wasn't, it was 85.
Oh,
Because of diversity of revenues, it got peaked a little bit, but it was 10 and 10 and 10 for the others. I'm just saying we haven't really discussed it and good.
Did we discuss the Bluegrass Festival?
Not in detail. We mainly said, did we want to zero it out? And that was a no. So that's where we would be next after coconut field restoration. So that is 10 for advertising, 15 for promotion of the arts.
That's for the bluegrass.
That's the Bluegrass Festival.
Last year.
For its first year, it did pretty well. You know, it's got a community. Yeah, that music has a real base, so she's part of that community, so she communicates well to it. I don't think that event is gonna over here, maybe in 10 years, we might start seeing larger numbers, but I think it's kind of gonna be a niche thing, it'll probably be a pretty good weekend. I don't think it's gonna be huge. It's not a huge community.
So the 10 grand for promotion, 15 grand for promotion of the arts, is just paying our vendors.
That's gonna
Or-
be musicians.
What part is the event itself funding? Like, what percentage is it of the entire event? So, how one of our goals was like that some of these events kind of have to be self-sustaining, and that we're just supposed to kind of help them get on their feet, and after a few years, it's just advertising.
That is a good question. That's on occasion been an argument, but, like Cowboy Poetry Gathering, and things like that, one could make an equal argument that, well, hey, if they've been going for a long time, they're making successful go of it, shouldn't we start weaning them? And that actually came up with 3 city managers ago.
Gallery 9.
Yeah,
Like Gallery 9 also.
yeah,
Cowboy Poetry is kind of historic, and it has a lot of value for Alpine in general, in a unique way. Bluegrass is Western
right,
or Alpine.
this event, but yeah. And so this is their second year. So let's see.
Is there any other events around that time that they're doing it? But is it bringing something during that time of year that nothing else is happening, that maybe it's bringing?
It's the same weekend as the Occupancy Fest. That's the only other thing that goes on that day.
Which is
Anybody comes to Alpine Food.
actually, those bluegrass people travel.
They came
Got it.
from far away and
Yeah.
they came at the beginning of the week and stayed for the whole time. They were,
Yeah.
most of them were in town by Tuesday or
So
Wednesday.
the folks that love it,
Nobody is not very neat.
I'm just saying, the people who
and that's,
came
it is a.
from
it's a-
far away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's small and dedicated. Now, the event that was like 20 years long was in Wicked. And so Alpine's a big step up.
That is 10 grand in advertising. More than they need to advertise that, like, are they doing posters and?
She did a good job advertising.
She did do a good job. She did a lot with bluegrass publications. So that's a good.
She used all of her funding last year for that. And then she used all of her funding for paying the musicians last year.
Yeah, that was. Pretty good.
They have no problem. No.
Okay, so for, let's see, next, next is the alcove, work, the remote work. So we have 12 on the line item right now. Under advertising.
It's for everything.
Yeah.
What's the total amount that he's asking for? Yeah.
That's after we took the 20 out for the.
Oh, no,
20
that's,
down.
that's.
with the 20.
So like,
I'll code advertising to, I don't know, he's asking for what, 15, 12? 12. Like 8%.
Certainly.
I'm bored. Yeah, like, I want it to be enough to be like, for it to actually be able to advertise, but I mean, I don't feel like.
yeah, I think the workout list should be cut in half to 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Just advertising, to me, all digitally or through. a
He has
few.
his own website, he has his own system.
Okay, so I put 5, the yoga retreat, 2,500 and the 1,500 retreat.
What was that transportation? The shuttle to take them from the hotel, because he thinks they're gonna come in on the train. So he's gonna have a shuttle to get him from like the antelope to the. Yeah. I don't see it. I don't see it.
2 bucks. Go ahead.
I'm in the yoga space and I'm watching Martha and Shirley Glenn, they're struggling to get people to come to their retreat right now, so that's where my worry is, and as far as Alpine is wonderful, and I've been here for 20 years, but it's not the same outside space as Shirley Glenn or Martha or like the draw. If you're coming from Austin or wherever you're coming from, like, you know, it's not that exciting for somebody, in my opinion.
They don't know that yet.
In it all, in yoga, between them. I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Okay,
That again is something that, you know, you could fundraise for.
okay, then we have Alpine Circular Van, that's 35, there's 10 for advertising and
25 for operation.
25 for.
Transportation.
They're not gonna charge people.
Not beneficial.
Yeah.
It's free on Saturdays, and it's just a one day, and then expand if it works. That seems like a lot. It's, yeah, I mean, I just get 5,000 for advertising.
I would agree with that.
Especially because a lot of his advertising come from the hotels
Right,
and
and
places where
there's
people are
relationship
staying.
you build with, so that's gonna be more, you get to. They want to make out everybody, every day, every 3 days, a week, exactly, he's got a little ball.
Okay, so 0 for transportation?
And 5 for advertising?
5 for advertising, okay. Then we have the Christmas stroll, which has 30 right now for advertising.
If you're not giving them if you're not giving them the 100 for the Christmas decorations, they don't need the 30 for advertising. The whole point was to advertise it as a destination for 5 to 6 weeks. So I think that that's very easy. If you're gonna cut that money and it's just gonna be that one weekend event, there's no way she needs 30 for.
So 5.
Oh, 0.
0 for advertising?
We didn't talk about his ticketing.
Not yet, it's next.
So you're giving. Did we give the Christmas stroll people money for advertising last year? Did they use it? Like. They didn't ask. This is the first time they've ever asked for money.
There is a lot going on at that time of the year, though.
It's also Mountain Country Christmas.
Right, and so.
That's why she wanted it to be a full like, come to Alpine. for
I'd say like 5,000.
But if she can't upgrade decorations, like, I don't know that we wanna advertise, come look at.
Just instead of the business center, I think that you should fund Christmas decorations out of the fund balance, not
Yeah.
this historic restoration project.
Well, that's the challenge, is that, yeah, the hook will make it legal. I don't really see.
But if you spin it.
I bet if we have to write Justin and say, hey, I just have some Christmas decorations.
But that's okay for theirs. They just build an advertising campaign around it after they bought theirs with.
Historic.
Yeah, that's crazy.
They did that in arts. I guarantee you, they did arts for that.
But that's how they did it, right?
Right, but they
And
don't
that's-
have the 15% cap,
Right.
and they've got a whole lot more money. So,
But after the money goes into the fund balance, we still have the 15%.
yeah, that's the max we're allowed to spend. Each year,
Wait, so can
So-
we spend any on buying new
we can't,
or
I don't think we can do it legally. We could do it out of arts.
what are we at?
She's asking for our money too,
And
and
we're advertising the Christmas in Alpine, which is the same thing that we've had, which is Mountain Country Christmas over the weekend. It's a parade, and it's a Christmas stroll. It's actually great. And yeah, See, now that's something that we've kind of done it, but not in a really dedicated way. That's one of the advantages if it works well. And in fact, you know what? I would suggest giving her 5 with the suggestion that she do a PR, because she knows how.
I definitely think that event could bring people, especially with the vendors coming to town for money.
But that brings it down another 20. So now we've got 160.
Are you gonna keep her at 5,000 for the permission of the arts? What was that to pay for? The music,
Probably, she probably doesn't need 5.
we didn't pay, they don't pay most of that music.
True.
So this 5.
It's high school band.
Yeah. They pay for Santa and.
Yeah,
But we are still,
Sounds like she needs a fundraiser.
they do, I mean, they do fundraise for it.
and now we're at 15 over on promotion of the arts. If we zero that out, then we have Alpine events,
The ticket sales tax,
the ticket sales side.
which doesn't have,
Right.
but he probably will.
Yeah,
have it
by that
there.
time.
It seems like a great idea to be used for all these events. I wonder if we talk about all the single side, either way. Either way, it sure looks like a
There's a
percentage.
Ticketmaster.
Yeah.
But that's 25,000 for advertising.
About 5.
Yeah, that's good. Some out there, that's.
Yeah.
I agree it's a good thing, but
Yeah.
for what they're getting dedicated, so we have to see where you're gonna go.
Yes, we can definitely.
Well, we have 5 on the table right now.
I have no idea what 5,000 in advertising costs.
Well, you know, in one respect, part of what he was asking for was that he could show support to the partners that he'd be working with, and so nothing is support. And so if you're getting in something, and I
The
intend,
problem is he doesn't have any partners yet, he doesn't have a path yet, so we don't really know what the benefit is yet. But $5,000 given a good start at figuring out all of those things.
yeah, well, and promote, trying to do the 80.
Next year, folks, he's really done a great job, brought people out, I gotta give it some more.
Yep.
They improved.
Yeah, perhaps he can bring us a report that
Yeah.
shows, the results from that 5.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we have Alpine Ghost Tours, which is 5 for advertising, 4 for promotion of the arts, 3 historical. That being historical content, because that is a historical, all this ghosts are mostly, except for like, mostly. Yeah. They,
I mean,
they're actually, yeah.
they said they were hiring this year.
I think that their numbers are in line, yeah, I think it's reasonable.
Okay, we cut our poetry to 60. That leaves now 40 in advertising for theater at the Big Bench.
Wait, did you keep 3,000 in transportation for the Christmas stroll?
Oh, I did.
What was that for? Yeah.
What's transportation?
To get people up and down that dang hill. Last year.
$3,000?
It's they haven't ever had it before. They've always just done, they've gotten,
Is it a van they're proposing?
I don't know what she was proposing. I don't remember. In the past, it's just been hayride that we begged people to do. And we got Candy Myers to bring her team to bring Santa from Presidio, but like she brought it only if my husband would load it, unload it and drive the team.
Well, I would
That's what we've
argue
done
that
before.
since the scale of the event as she envisioned it.
It's gone down.
It's gone
That's why I
down.
was wondering what
Yeah,
she was wanting to do that.
That would essentially be one evening for a band, so that would probably be $500.
Yeah.
You say that it went down to the lights?
Yeah, it's because there's not that massive, asset infrastructure.
No one cares about Christmas.
And so that brings it now to the 40 for theater Big Ben for advertising.
Are they asking for this year?
Not in a while.
They got money this year,
Let's see. You're right, they got 20.
but they shifted it so they don't ask for money to pay the actors. They shift their budget. That's why they're not asking
Yeah.
for promotion of the arts money. They instead use the money they get off of ticket sales to pay the actors, so we can give them advertising money and not affect that 15%.
Can we give 20,000 for the year?
Sure.
I think it should get more than that.
25?
I'm just saying, like, they are trying to build it with bringing in these acting troops and professional actors. They're trying to change it from just being whoever's safe for the summer from school.
But we still have 140,000.
If we cut it that much, we really tie their hands for the theater.
We gotta tie somebody's hands, John.
I understand completely, but
Who can possibly make it up easier than who cannot? You know, if it's really hanging their hat on that $2,000 worth of advertising money, being a great event where if it so rocks. They have more amount of people need to raise that, if you have all that, but. I don't wanna say who's more, but it is.
Well,
$100,000 a credit.
yes. Well, we have it at 20 at the moment. Doesn't have to stay there. If we find other cuts.
That's just for, I'm
That's for other
yeah.
cuts.
That's all they asked for, right?
Yeah.
They asked for.
They asked for
Yeah.
So that brings us to Granada Theater. That was 9 for advertising, 4,500 for promotion funds.
That's the wedding thing or not?
No, it's the wedding and the promotion of the arts for non-music. Right, like the jugglers and that stuff, right? That's that part of that?
Yeah.
What is it total then?
Oh, gosh. See if I can figure it out.
That you spread it all out like this.
Okay, well,
For the sign that you're.
Nothing. they
the
just-
sign's at 0 right
Does it work out
now.
west?
He's at 5. Workout. It's at 0 for the younger.
Five,
First of
Alpine event, you know,
And then the 13.5, so the 23.5 right now, that is 13.5 for the Granada.
Figured out 10 of them.
right now you guys have only given us 10 without this wedding thing.
I think very ambitious and don't want to get it to his piece, but maybe a little thin. Going on.
I think it'd be better to give them some of the promotion money to promote Alpine as a wedding destination with like hotel trips and not pay for the
Yeah.
music event.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think locals are just going to those,
Which category are you talking
the
about?
promotion of the arts one, but not the, give, on the Granada Presents. I think that there's more potential for the promoting Alpine as a wedding destination and advertising dollars than the promotion of the arts money
Okay.
for things that don't bring people.
And
from
we're
town.
still 15 over. Promotion dealers.
Even taking out that 45.
No, I haven't done that. So now we are at 11 over. Do you want to keep him at 9 for the weddings?
I don't know what the other hotels do, like age, whatnot, you know, how many weddings they do, like.
Well, I know that when I was talking to Abby and when she was director of tourism at Wampa, and she was saying, there, I forget which months it were, but it was like almost every weekend the town was rented for a wedding.
But September is huge.
But do we think that's because they don't change the gardens? And then the other
This
stuff
was,
for that?
this was because it was Martha. Yeah.
And
I
age
saw
too, it's like a wedding dress.
Yeah. So like, does the Granada have that same sort of pull?
Not yet.
What do we think that it can?
We hope so, because there's not really another place in Elmhurst.
Well, I think that you do have another place, so with what Catherine's doing, you do. Catherine's gonna be all inclusive, like, age. Because she's got those casitas opening,
That's for the other.
yeah,
And there's new investment that's gonna be coming in the vowel. That will
Yes.
create that. Yeah. But so for this year,
but I'm
we want wedding money out there. We want wedding promotion out to by the people.
I could argue that promoting it as a wedding destination actually benefits everyone eventually.
Well, that's why I like Chris doing it better than just one person. Like you're saying, you would work with it anyway, so you promote all of these places as a wedding destination instead of just giving him the money for it.
I agree. So is there?
You're like
Do you agree?
Well, because you also, because then you can promote the event space at the museum
Okay.
as
And
opposed
yeah,
to have it.
I'm happy to earmark $9,000 out of general forces to promote weddings, destination weddings, sure. So now,
And then we'll build a page on the website that lists all the places that you can have it, the places to stay to go with it, and then caterer options and.
okay, so now we're at 15,
I know, I'm gonna have to do that.
we're at roughly 11,000 over on promotion of the arts. And we are 101,000 over, in general.
Who's
And
getting
so-
the most of the info of that 100,000?
I think you should cut the 10,000 on the, sporting events for the rodeo part of Lone Star Galway Gathering.
No, what are you suggesting?
They're asking for 10,000 to add that rodeo event.
Now they're getting 9,600.
Well,
They're still, they are still the highest.
I'm just saying, like, they put it on last minute this year because the rodeo team just did it this last year. So first year out of the gate, I don't think, or I mean, like, this is the first time they're getting money for it. I don't think they need $9,000 for it.
Why not, why not, take some off of these bigger guys, that are a little bit more adept at,
For those who can't
providing,
do the other funding.
yeah, if you take like 15 off of few of them, or 10.
Depends on the.
So let's see,
Like, how can you distribute?
if we start from the top, okay, we've got 60 to Lone Star Cowboy Poetry Gathering. Then we have 45 still on the budget for Coconut Field restoration. We have 45 for Art Walk. Those are the top three, right?
I think keep the restoration part on the coconut field, but cut the 20 for the sporting events that pays for like that's the part that pays.
The batting cage.
Yeah, that's because that's not, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now we can move that down to, possible consideration for.
You gotta start- you need to keep moving stuff around. You gotta start.
That's right.
Just wants to get everything.
This- I know. We do too, but it's just, you gotta look at, it's gotta be a set criteria, and do we want to set an amount that is tops for advertising? Because we all advertise, we all know what it costs, it's, what's it gonna be, is 9,000 ridiculous? I feel it is, is 5,000 fair, we get closer. Do we want to have a?
Are we still giving 5,000 to the motorcycle rally and advertising?
No, it's not that.
That needs to go down on that advertising. I think they only do social media advertising.
Yeah, I would say.
Sometimes it's your own business's responsibility to
I think-
advertise as well.
2,500 for advertising.
So we have 0, 1, and 2,500 right now. That have been mentioned.
I say 0, that's.
For advertising?
Yeah, for the voters.
Can't you do a decent Facebook campaign with like 15?
I guess, yeah.
Right. There you go.
Okay.
Do we want to keep them at 5 for music?
Didn't we say this direct?
How many days long is it?
To another.
No,
that was the
that was the other two we already gave.
Okay.
How many days long is their event?
2. They do DJ and bands.
For Monday, we did it.
DJ is the band.
It's April.
That's a-
It is.
How many days is it? 2 June.
They changed the date this year because we actually asked them to. Because they were gonna fall on Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah.
So we asked them to change it. It changed to the next.
Well, it being me, I suggested that might be a conflict.
Yeah. Well, because they were like, all these bikers are gonna be here, they're.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, writing the police chief about how are we gonna route the bikers around the parade.
They were accommodating is what I was saying.
Promotion of the arts is for.
Yes, and we've got 5,000 for mostly arts for families.
2,500, yeah.
Okay. I know. Sorry, Larry. Okay, so we have 19,350 for Viva. 15,000 for motion of the arts. They are at 35, Art Walk is at 45.
I think we should drop.
I'll walk down
Yeah.
to the same.
We'll take them to 35.
Yeah.
And so,
Are you gonna take it out of promotion of the art, because that's where you're still 11,000 over?
Did you know?
Yeah.
If you take it out of promotion of the arts, you'll probably actually be at the 15.
But for the moment,
And I have to put the work festival.
okay, so now we are at 64 over overall.
What about
And
the coconut lodge activities? We still have a question on, or the year that.
we have
I still have,
coconut lodge improvements is still at 15.
that's what I say, I think that needs to be way less or gone. Yeah,
Zero this.
I think zero because like I said, the theater's supposed to put the money into it, and really the university should put.
Okay, we are now 3,000 over on compulsion of the arts. Let's see, what are our tops right now? We have 15 and 15 for Art Walk in Viva. We have 15 for the Bluegrass Festival. We have 8.
That's not nearly as big, why don't you take that one down?
Take it to 12 or 10.
50,000.
Take it, whatever, it takes them to get it. But
If that would be 12.
So now that's at it meets the legal requirement, that category.
Yes, that is legal now, but overall, we are still have to cut 46.
46 over everything.
From, yeah.
What about the Jacksonville program? Is that zero now?
Yes.
And Granada side, what do we end up with there?
It's at 0.
That was. Sick living five. Or zero?
So you again is 5.
Coconut Village,
Uh,
restoration.
That is at 25 right now. That's 5 for promotion, 5 for advertising, and 20 for historical restoration.
And trapping.
Trappings is at 25. And so let's see. If we,
So the museum total for advertising is getting 50 between their general budget and their trapping budget.
just those 2.
Yeah.
You know, at 40,000, those are still cut.
No, 40 something.
What if we could, is there a museum promotions not for local traffic?
They are separate. There's 25 for everything that's not trappings to the year, and then 25 for trapping.
You said at 40,000 still cut.
We have 46 to cut across the board.
I think we'll take that.
Would you take the coconut outdoor theater down to?
Oh, that is at 20.
And that pays for the.
No, that's theater of the Big Ben. That's theater of the Big Ben advertising. We should not say coconut. Too confusing.
Yes, right.
Theater of the Big Ben.
9 largest ones that we've got 5,000. There's one of these one.
Or Eva and Art Walk.
We have not cut Viva, we cut Art Walk by 10.
To get Art Walk the same as Viva. I don't think you should touch those two anymore.
Then we've got,
What are the top line after that first?
let's see, then we have the 25s. We have Coconut Field Restoration, which we already cut down to 25. Let's see, Alpine Cowboys baseball is at 34. That's next. And we have not cut it.
What's that thing for? Just after.
Let's see, if we do
Historical and sporting.
5, 4, get
Why,
down to
why don't
20.
you put, both the rodeos to the same amount? Total, they're asking for 35, one's asking for 15, and one's asking for 20.
Yeah. Okay, I've got the Cowboys down to 20 by doing 10 for advertising and 5 each for sporting and historical. And now what are we coming up?
The two rodeos.
2 rodeos. And so Big Ben Ranch area is at 20 right now.
The rodeo from the.
We have not removed it, it's at 9,600 right now.
Oh, yeah, so I think that, and basically that supporting money for both the two rodeos is paying for the stock and the judges.
And so what are we suggesting?
Out of the,
We have
one is rodeos, money, right? So this one, Big Ben Ranch rodeo is at 20.
Right, bring it down to the.
Bring it down to 15.
Okay, so that comes down to 15.
And then
And then take off that one day from,
No, the cowboy poetry is at 96 for, or one
Zero out
zero.
of 96, okay. Okay.
Zero it?
Now we're at 17. And our next, let's see. Our
Are you gonna
next,
take some away from Flora with the college version?
that's at 15.
That's equal to.
And the two rodents. And Soros was one that's at 100, you know, at school, but.
The rodeo does bring a lot of, it has.
Okay, so then we've got 3 25s for the museum.
Which have already been done.
Yeah.
How much,
They cut it
how
off.
much are we over right now?
Right now, we're over 17,000.
Take 5 from the one.
How many are we?
I think you should keep their historic restoration, but cut the to advertising.
So that's when this matching fund.
Yeah, that's why, that's why I worry about it.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Okay, that leaves us
You could spread it out over all of them for like
7,900. 7,900. So there's 8 different line items, we took down by 1,000. Let's see, is there anybody that has yet to be cut? Spirits of the West, is it 27? Oh.
Would the city council be seriously perturbed if you submitted, or we submitted a budget that was 7,000 over the 400? I know what Megan asked us to do, but sometimes this gets silly.
Just like I said, it got rid of here to the revenue.
But did you say Heather, it was gonna be 430 some odd thousand and today? What you guys saying now? What?
No, I think he was just using that as a figure, like it could be that way,
Okay, yeah, you're right.
but they told us.
Could be lovely.
Yeah, take that off and then.
We're always guessing on what we're gonna bring in.
Right. You guys wanna take advertising off the spirit store?
So they've got 16 for advertising, 11 for our parks.
The Big Bend Film Commission hasn't been cut at all, sorry, John, yeah.
Yeah. So, the next highest one that had not been cut, 27.5 for spirits, 26 for the definition.
Split that in half, take that. Yeah. It's only fair.
So that means everybody took a little bit of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're cutting the advertising because promotion of the arts is within the 15 on Spirits of the West, right?
Right.
Okay.
That's 30 million. It will, right, that's, I mean, that is now, that just got it in. Okay.
Just check it out.
This better than last time.
Do they report?
Way 30 last time.
Year.
We were all angry about it.
Yes. And I track that through the year too, because I approve every.
They have to pay for it, that's right.
Yeah, I think it's. Now, if they don't use that, is there a carryover?
No, nothing carries over.
So we just lose it.
That's why it's important when they get the advertising money, they use it.
Right.
Because if we're giving it to them, then Chris is taking it out of his budget. Otherwise, when they don't use it, we have to figure out how to spend it. Or koozies.
That sounds like.
Work.
Chris, I just want you to know that when you cut the Big Bend Film Commission's budget, you cut out your own hotel room.
He never goes out on anything. What are you talking about? You're just gonna make Evan sleep in a box.
Hey, good idea. In the parking lot.
It's under the table.
We have budgeted that balance.
Yay,
Can you go down and tell us what we did?
Yeah. I can't tell you what exactly changed, but
No, I'm just saying where the numbers ended up on every.
I'll send you the requests and the,
And then final budget.
yeah,
That would be good.
yeah, I'll send you the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just for next year too.
But yeah, just a quick rundown, so. This is what we would consider for a motion for a vote is, Old Crystal Bar, Crystal Art Show, total of 0. Old Crystal Bar, Big Bend Music Festival, total of 0. Old Crystal Bar fourth annual motorcycle rally, total of 3,500, one for advertising, 2,500 for community art. Family Crisis Center, cowboy dance, 500 for advertising, 1,500 for promotion of the arts. Kiwanis Fourth of July celebration, 4,000 for advertising, 2,250 promotion of the arts, 350 for sporting events. Viva Big Bend, 19,250 for advertising, 15,000 for promotion of the arts. Alpine's Gallery Night, Spirits of the West, sorry, it's Spirits of the West, 14,025 for advertising, 9,525 for promotion of arts, because we were balancing it out. Art Walk, 20,000 advertising, 15,000 promotion of arts. Museum of the Big Bend, general promotions, 20,000, renovation expansion, 25,000, traffic in Texas, 20,000. Soros College Rodeo, 15,000. Our Lady of Peace Fall Festival, 5,000 for advertising, 2,000 for promotion of arts. Big Bend Ranch Rodeo, 15,000. Alpine Independent School District, Coconut Field Restoration, 25,000. Bluegrass Association, 10,000 for advertising, 12 for promotion of the arts. Alpine Cowboys Baseball, 10 for advertising, 5 for sporting, 5 for historical. Big Bend Film Commission, 22,050 for advertising. Coconut Lodge Improvement, 0. Jackson Field Activity, 0. Granada Sign Restoration, 0. Work Out West, 5,000 for advertising. Alpine Circular Van, 5,000. I'm sorry, Yoga Retreat, 0. Alpine Circular Van, 5,000 for advertising. Historic Alpine Christmas Stroll, 5,000 for advertising, 500 for transportation. Alpine Ghost Tours, no, Alpine Events was 5,000 for advertising. Alpine Ghost Tours, 5,000 for advertising, 4,000 for promotion of the arts, 3,000 for historical. Lone Star Cowboy Bush, you got 400 for the Civic Center, 30,000 advertising, 18,000 promotion of the arts, 2,000 transportation, for a total of 50,400. Here, the Big Bend is 20,000 for advertising. Granada presents 0. That is a total of 400,000. I would consider a motion. And a second, is any further discussion? I know you guys want to talk some more.
So I just offer a couple thoughts.
Please.
One, you all have gone through a really important process. You start with a budget, you want to score them all, and then you came up with some recommendations to go forward. I think the committee ought to think about how you go talk about this in a way that people will comprehend. In my simpleton view, and because I'm not seeing the budget yet from the city manager. So my assumption is there's $800,000, of which half has to go to advertising. So you all were trying to get down to 800,000 total. Your request were $1,055,000. So basically you had to cut $255,000 out of the request. And so I just asked you to think about that storyline, because some people look and say, okay, that makes sense or didn't make sense. Because this is going to rattle around from the community standpoint, we're taking 255,000.
No, 655,000.
I'm sorry,
600.
Because we only have a budget of 400,000.
That's not
We cut
$800,000.
$655,000.
you cut 655,000.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So there was a million, we only have 400.
Okay, so
800 available, 400,000 available,
Okay, so-
not 800.
okay, so advertising, that's what I'm struggling with.
That is not a total that the city's gonna spend on advertising, because the tourism director's contract, that's all advertising. And the general promotions budget is also advertising. So those three buckets together, general promotions, the advertising category under the grants, and basically what they pay me, all those three things together have to add up. to get that.
Right.
And that be half of what we collect. And that's gonna be 700 something, I expect, we created it hitting. And that's where Megan identified 400 as the total that the city was gonna budget for grants specifically under all available categories, with the idea that we might not be as high. So it is a conservative.
Okay,
Where did we end up in each category? Like, where did we end up total in advertising?
In advertising, we're at total 225, 325
Okay, so you cut 655,000.
from the total requests.
Okay,
across the board.
Okay, so that's an important message. Okay, because people are gonna say, hold it, I want all the trouble, put all this together. And here's what I got,
Yeah,
but your real target was to cut 655,000 or 600, 55,000 out of the 1,055,000. As one who's looking at the overall budget for Alpine, I think having that story is gonna be important as you come to city council. And so people can says, oh, I had no idea they had cut 655,000 out of the bucket. As soon as I get that, now the emotions go down, now people can get rational.
That's because it's been. It's been.
Yeah, but I think that's an important element to think about, that story. So as you bring emotion forward, it's gonna be, here's where we're at. But back to John's comment earlier. One of the things I'm gonna be asking for across the board in all budgets is what's our fund balance? And what are the strategic things that Alpine needs to go work on? I spent an hour today at the wastewater treatment plant today. Right? You know, I look at the three biggest items the city needs to go work on. Wastewater treatment, water, and employee salaries. To me, those are the big three. And I've been a guy who's been a big proponent of roads. But my view is, until we understand where we are in revenue, if we don't have water, we cease to exist. If we can't continue to process sewage, we have big issues. If we can't pay our employees, we don't have anyone to do the work. So I'm just asking you to think about, what are the big three items you want city council to think about when they consider what you're doing?
I think it should be part of the conversation there should be, why is our fund balance so large?
Yep.
Sitting in the hot funds?
Yep.
It's because. I mean, I have my opinion of why it's so large. It's not because we haven't been giving these people money. Right?
Yeah, but that's part of the discussion you want to be able to share. Yeah. Because there will be a propensity, spend more, spend more, spend more. And you got some fiscal responsibility to go work. And what is the fund balance right now?
my guess is 650. Something like that.
600,000?
Yeah, because it was around 800 when Eric was here and we were budgeting. We made that mid-year request.
Yep.
And we did a video production project. We laid out the visitor center improvements.
We brought in so much that year, we never spent
And we
anything
didn't
out of
actually-
the fund balance to
For
pay
that
for the
project.
renovation.
Well, there you go. So then it's close to 700 instead of 50. But the issue is, we have to, and this is basically, as I understand it, we have to have somebody in finance that has a free couple of hours, which they haven't had. You know, I don't know how long it'll take, but we've got to like write down that number and say, what has council approved as a required contingency and reserve? So that we know then what's actually unencumbered, because some of that.
The reserve is separate from the fund balance. The fund balance is like what you have left in your checking and the reserve is.
This is what I'm saying is that I don't know, because I don't have access to checking accounts. And so I don't know what exactly the fund balance is. I don't know what the council's reserve and contingency amounts are, because those policies were passed. But somebody just got to do the math so that we then say, here's the number. And then we can say, what's our strategy to spend that down?
So what if there was another $200,000? What would you do with it?
By Christmas, for me.
Yeah, you can't.
Getting 250,000 from all these already approved things, we don't want to cut. And then
That
what-
might be anyway.
Okay, that's why I'm asking the question, because I am worth the issue about fund balance.
I think we should take a serious look at infrastructure and restoration. If we really had an extra 200,000,
Can't be spent on infrastructure except
Right,
for
well,
the.
we could-
Stuff in the city council.
We could legally, assuming that we actually do bring in the amount that this is considering, which is, there'll probably be a little bit more, maybe a lot more, but if, with this spreadsheet, we would have basically $40,000 that could go back into historic legally before we hit our 50% cap. So we could put 20 into the Granada sign, we could put 20 more back into Coconut Field. If council wanted to.
So that's why I'm asking,
Yeah.
what would you all recommend?
Just that. Us.
Sorry?
Field and the sign, I think, was the largest.
Yeah, so in my mind, I think you want to be prepared for that question. Okay,
But after it goes into the fund balance, it's not going into this year's revenue first, so does it still have to be at that 15%?
Because it's our expenditure during. That's the weird thing, you know, it's like if we got that 50% cap, that 50% minimum, and I'm always thinking, and that's part of one of the reasons why we have that fund balance is that because it's tax money, I'm cautious and it's like, so I would have a budget, but if I can get the job done and underspend the budget, that just makes sense, right? And I figured, oh, well, at least half of the money we spent that year. Yeah. Finally learned, no, it's not the money we collected that year has to be spent. And so it's the amount that came in that year that those percentages are flagged to regardless of how much.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. So once we meet those percentages in a year, it goes into the fund balance, then why are we still restricted by those percentages? Because it's not.
Because all those things are always timed down within a fiscal year by the collections for that year. It's always will, we can have as much, we can have $2 million in fund balance, so we can't spend $1 more than 15% in a given year that we took in that year.
okay, so
What is it gonna be used?
That's what,
That's the question. It can be used for advertising, it can be used for sporting events, it can be used for historic preservation up to 15% of collections, it can be used for transportation. It can be used for be used through the visitors.
So estimating what is gonna come in as a huge deal.
Yeah.
So wouldn't it be smart to overestimate in that case if there's a continual high balance?
No, that argument. Yeah.
Because then, like, even if you award, say, if you get this awarded, given the funds come in, you know, you say, yeah.
but all of our big payers pay a quarter behind the biggest hotels, so we are always late knowing how much is coming in. Cause all the hotels pay, like, way after they collect.
If we track again at over 700 for next year, there's a real strong argument for this committee having a big budget next year.
I think with a large fund balance too, I mean, we haven't used legally what the fund.
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm trying to say is that
Yeah.
I broke that law for the first 5 years I was doing this because I thought I was being fiscally prudent, you know? Yeah.
Were there was it double the ask amount this year? No, for the previous. Seemed like double the amount.
It was fun. Yeah, because, we had to cut, but the hardest thing to cut was pushing the arts last year. That's what we really heard this time.
So you kind of bring it to closure. You guys gonna have a proposal, go forward to council. We'll work it through the budget for the next, 2 months. We don't need to settle on a budget till end of August, actually 15 days before fiscal year starts. We have to be done. You all have some flexibility. I don't know, when do you all meet next?
We don't, actually, this is our last meeting,
Yeah,
we
next
we
year.
vote on this recommendation and then I prepare it for the 18th. So I need to send it to Gio on Wednesday.
Okay, so you all may want to consider another meeting. And the discussion, think about what's the strategic intent of the hot committee. Okay, because I'm thinking about for next year, you all have some limitations, is what I hear. Okay, I'm worried those limitations are constraining what you might do if you had more money. Okay. And I would think about, because this is the only surplus in city council. It is the only surplus, okay? And if we are about tourism in this city, and you've all heard me talk about, and Heather's talked about OPM, other people's money. The other people's money are the tourists that come in here. There is not enough money moving around this town to sustain it, so we have to bring in tourists.
Advertise.
this pot of money is for that. And so I would suggest you all consider, you're the committee, what your thoughts are about how we bring more tourists in here so we can get other people's money. That's why this money's for.
Well, I would also argue that if Chris would not remit his contract, the expense or if he would decide not to do that,
Mhm.
the expenses to the city for what he does would be so much more expensive
Yeah.
if we had to hire an ad agency because he does it all. If we had to farm out ad creation and ad buys and all the art that he does, it would cost us a fortune more. Like what Martha pays for their stuff compared to what we pay.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
Well, thank you.
he's very underpaid.
Yes.
I'm just, if you guys can all look
So
at.
if you need somewhere to put the fund balance.
Well, I mean, when I'm saying.
See, that's where I'm at in terms of the strategic thought process. What would you do? How would you budget? Not that you want to go spend the money outside, but think about strategically how you can work your way through.
Well, and that's why, like, in my 5-year plan, I asked to, like, and Megan came over with you guys to spend and do like the repairs that are needed all at once, so it's one RFP.
We are not, we're still in discussion.
Oh, shoot. Karen has to vote.
I thought you voted.
Sorry.
I did this.
Okay, is there any further discussion on the motion at this time? All in favor, please raise your hand.
I,
Thank you, John.
I,
Okay.
this guy,
No, you're good.
Done.
Are there any board member comments? Thank you. Thank you.